So here's the agenda for today. We'll first be looking into why you need a configuration management tool in your network, and then we'll be looking into the requirements for installing Managing's Network Configuration Manager. And then we'll be looking into how you can discover devices and what device templates are. And then we'll be looking into what credentials are and how you can associate them to your devices using Network Configuration Manager. Then we'll be looking into configuration backups, the types of backup, configuration upload, and then we'll be moving on to change management, and then firmware vulnerability management, and then finally we'll be looking into disaster recovery. So on a daily basis, you see that a lot of configuration changes are being made to your network devices. So this would be to accommodate a change or an upgrade or a downgrade in the network infrastructure or to serve any security requirements. So there'll be a lot of changes made by different network admins or network operators in the network. While doing so, your network or your configurations are prone to a lot of configuration errors, which can cause a network issue or a full-blown network outage. So with the configuration management tool, you can moderate all the configuration changes that are made and minimize the configuration errors. Another advantage of having a configuration management solution is that you can detect changes in real time. So with an approval-based configuration upload mechanism, you can make sure that you receive notification of all the changes your admins or operators are trying to make in your network, and then moderate and then approve if the changes are applicable or are completely safe to your network devices. Also, you can set a rollback mechanism to your critical devices like your core routers or your firewall devices where you don't want any kind of configuration changes to be made. So if anyone tries to make a change of configuration in those devices, it will automatically roll back to a previous or trusted version of configuration so that your network still remains safe and stable. Another advantage is that you can stay compliant to policies and standards like industry policies like Cisco, iOS policy, HIPAA policy, PCI policy, and so on. Or if you have any internal compliance requirements within your own business, you can ensure that you are completely compliant with all of those. And even if you're not compliant, you'll receive the alerts and you can make sure that you stay compliant by deploying fixes. So the final advantage is that you can streamline the entire maintenance process with all the above methods. You can minimize configuration errors, detect changes in real time, make sure your configurations are compliant. You can take a backup of all the configurations and upload them whenever required. Also, you can make sure that configurations of your critical devices are not changed at all. So moving on to what Managing in Network Configuration Manager can do for you in your network infrastructure. Starting from the top right, you can compare configurations of two different devices or different configuration versions of the same device using a diffuse capability in Network Configuration Manager. Second one is the configuration rollback, which I just talked about. You can ensure that any changes are made to your critical devices like your firewalls or your core routers, it will be immediately rolled back to a trusted version of the configuration so that your network remains secure and stable. You also have a change review and approval mechanism, so using which you can moderate all the configuration changes that your network operators or admins are trying to make on the devices that they have access to. And then there's remote firmware upgrade, using which you can upgrade the firmwares of any devices if they have a vulnerability or if they have a bug or something in the current firmware version. And if a upgrade version is available, you can upgrade it directly using Network Configuration Manager's configurates. And then we have the policy compliance verification, which I just spoke about. You can ensure that you stay compliant or your network devices and the configurations are compliant to the industry policies like Cisco, HIPAA, PCI policies, and so on, and also your internal compliance policies. Then there's user-based access, using which you can restrict the access of network operators to certain devices only to which they need access to for their everyday work. Then you have the real-time change detection, based on which Network Configuration Manager will automatically back up the configurations of devices if any kind of change is detected by NCM. And finally, you have job scheduling, using which you can schedule various network operations or configuration operations like a backup, an upload, a compliance verification, and so on. So let's look at the prerequisites for you to, or the minimum six system requirements for you to be able to install or deploy Network Configuration Manager in your network. You need a 2 gigahertz total processor, a 4 GB RAM, a 100 GB storage, PostgreSQL or MSQL, and it runs both on Windows and Linux. And if you need the prerequisites for more than 50 devices. So these are the requisites for 50 devices or less. You need the configurations or the information for more than 50 devices. You can go and check out our system requirements page on the website, which is www.networkconfigurationmanager.com. So the ports and protocols that have to be made available for NCM are SSH, SCP, and TFTP in the protocol section. And the ports that have to be made available is 69 TFTP, 22 SSH, SCP, 514 syslog, 13306 Postgres database, and 8080 HTTP. So let's quickly move on to the device discovery part. So discovery is how you add, device discovery is how you add your network devices to Network Configuration Manager so that you can start managing them using the solution. So this is how discovery works in Network Configuration Manager. The discovery engine first sends an SNMP request to the device, and the device responds by sending the sysobject ID of the device back to the discovery engine. So if a match is found between the sysobject ID and the sysobject ID in the existing database, it is immediately added to Network Configuration Manager, and the corresponding device template is associated. The match is not found, the device will not be added, but you can add it manually later. I'll be showing you how to do this. Before that, let me quickly take you through the types of discovery. So we have two types of major types of discovery in Network Configuration Manager. First is the SNMP Discovery. So in the SNMP Discovery part, you can discover devices using the IP address, IP range, or a CSV file import. We also have a manual addition option to discover your devices. So you can discover your devices using the IP address or host name, and you have a provide vendor, the device template, or you can use a CSV file import, which should be in the particular format. So let me quickly take you to NCM UI and show you how to discover your devices into NCM. So to discover your devices using the SNMP Discovery, go to Settings, go to Discovery, click on Network Discovery. So here you have the options, the IP hostname. If you want to just discover one single device, if you want to discover multiple devices that fall between an IP range, you can enter the IP range, or you can go ahead and use the CSV file import. Click on the sample file to understand how the formatting of the specifics must be put there in that particular file for the discovery to be successful. So I'll just enter an IP range here. And associate the public credentials here and click on discover. Here, this is the discovery report, and here's the report for the discovery that I just triggered. Let's drill down into that. And here you can see the status of the devices along with their IP addresses here. So here you can see that some of the devices already exist in that particular IP range. And if the devices have not been added, you can see that there's an error here saying that the device is not reachable. Click here to add to the inventory. So this is how you do it. If you have a discovery error, you can manually add it like I mentioned before. Click on the device there. Here you can select the vendor and the template name. So I'll be talking about what a device template is later on in the training. For associated tag, you can do that as well. Choose from one of these tags that you've already entered, or if you want to add a new tag and associate the device with that tag, you can click on plus icon here, add a tag. Once you've done that, you can click on add. And you can see that the device has now been successfully added to the NCM inventory. If you want to do this to multiple devices, all you have to do is select all the devices, click on add to inventory. select the vendor and the device template name here, click on add. Just like before, the devices will now be added to your inventory. So going to the manual edition, go to the inventory, click on the plus button here, enter the host name or the IP address of the device that you want to discover, select the vendor, the device template name, tag again that I showed you previously, and then click on add. Or if you want to do it with a CSV file import, you choose this option. You can provide the CSV file in this particular format, upload it here, click on import, and all the devices that you mentioned there in the CSV file will now appear on your NCM inventory. So if you have any trouble, again, like I said before, if the devices are not added, you can go to settings, discovery report, which will take you back to the discovery report that we just saw. Drill down on the latest discovery status, and then just add them to the inventory like I showed you before. So while trying to discover devices, you might face the following error. So it could be because the device is not responding or reachable yet. So the most common causes is the incorrect SNMP read community, or if the SNMP itself is disabled in the device. So in such cases, you have to log into the device using a telnet or OT window console and then correct the SNMP read community or enable SNMP in the device. And then you can discover those devices into NCM. Or it could be due to the device subject ID not being mapped with any device template. So fix this, you have to go to the device template and add the subject ID there. I'll be showing you how to do that when we talk about device templates. Or it could be due to the reason that no default device template is available in NCA for that particular device. Again, you can create a new device template, or you can just clone an existing device template and make slight modification to that. If you're finding all of this really difficult to do, you can always contact NCM support. Moving on to device templates. So device templates are merely a bunch of commands put together. So these commands are configuration commands for very common operations like a configuration backup, a configuration upload, enabling disturbances log, change direction, or fetching hardware information. So this is very important because the commands for a Brocade device and a Fortinet device or a Juniper device would differ, and it becomes really cumbersome for a network admin or network operator to remember all the commands for all of these vendors. So with Network Configuration Manager, all of that is completely the hassle is completely removed, and you can simply associate all of those devices according to their vendor to a device template and start managing them instantly. So let me show you how you can create and modify device templates. Go to config automation here. Go to device templates, CLI device templates. So we have the options of both CLI and test device templates. So I'll just show you the CLI device templates right now. So here you can view the existing templates. You can just view them from here. So here you can see this is subject ID of the devices that have been associated with this particular template. And if you have any device discovery issue just because the subject ID has not been mapped to one of those templates, you can just drill down into those templates like I showed you. Click on the template, click on the add subject ID, and enter the host name or the IP address of the device that you want to be associated to this particular device template. You can either choose an SNMP credential profile from the top down here, or enter the credentials manually of that particular device. Click on next, and then you can associate that particular device to this template. If you want to clone this particular device template, you can do just click this here. And if you want just minor configurations to be made to suit your requirements of a new device or a new vendor, clone, uh, change all the specifics here. Make this device template name, different vendor if you want to make the device type. So next here, you can change all the configuration commands or the timeout settings if you want to. You choose if you want to trigger a backup response for any of these commands. Click on next. Enter the sysobject ID of the device or devices that you want to associate with this particular device template, so that the next time a device of that vendor and model is added, it will automatically be associated to this device template. Once you're done with that, you can click on save, and your new device template will now be created with the updated name, the commands, the timeout settings, and also the sysobject IDs that you've associated. Moving on to backup credentials. So backup credentials are pretty important because they help establish a connection between NCM and your network devices. So we have different possible combinations of protocols for backup. We have SSH, we have Telnet, we have SSH TFTP, Telnet TFTP, SSH SCP, and SNMP TFTP. So let me quickly take you through how each of these combinations work. First, let's look with the SSH or Telnet protocol. So NCM sends configuration backup commands through a communication channel that is established with SSH or Telnet to the device, and the device responds by sending the device configuration back to NCM's engine through the same communication channel that is established, and NCM encrypts and stores the configuration file in the database. So using the SSH SCP protocol, the configuration backup commands are sent through the communications channel, the SSH SCP communication channel, and the device responds by sending the configuration file transfer using SCP through the same channel to the SCP server, which is then encrypted and stored in the database. Again, here's another combination of SSH TFTP or Telnet TFTP. A communication channel is established using the same protocols. The configuration backup commands are sent through the channel, and the config file transfer happens through TFTP. The TFTP server receives the configuration file, encrypts it, and stores it in the database. So as the protocols change, all the change you can see is the protocols that are being used to send the backup commands and the configuration file transfer. So here's the final example of the SNMP TFTP. Here, no communication channel is established, but then the configuration backup request is sent through SNMP, and the file transfer happens using TFTP. The TFTP server receives it, encrypts it, and stores it in the database. So, like I said earlier, it's very important to provide credentials because they help establish a communication between NCM and the device that you're trying to manage. Only after the communication has been established, you can perform operations like a backup or an upload or a configuration compliance test and so on. So let me show you how to provide credentials. So you can see all the devices that you've discovered in the inventory here. And if you want to add credentials to any of these devices, all you have to do is click on the key icon here beside the device that you want to add or associate credentials to. Choose the protocol here. You could choose a credential profile if you already have a credential profile created for that particular device or group of devices, or you can create a new credential profile, enter all the credential specifics here, save it, and then associate it there. Or if you want to enter just the credentials for that single device, just move it to select, and then you can enter the credential of that particular device if it has a very unique credential. See that the login name, password, enable password prompt, and enable prompt to keep in here. And you can click on save. Or if you want to check if the credentials that you provided are correct, you'll have to click on save and test, and NCM will try to run certain configuration commands in that particular device using those credentials. And if the credentials work or if the credentials are right, the command execution is successful and NCM will successfully associate the credentials to that particular device. You can also choose to back up the device immediately after updating the credentials if that's a requirement. So let me quickly show you a comparison of how adding credentials differ between a manual console like a telnet window and NCM. So this is an example of a Cisco router where password and enable password is configured. On the left side, in the black window is the telnet window, telnet console, and on the right side is the NCM console where you add the credentials. So you can see that the password prompt, the enable password, and the enable prompt are provided here. Here's another example of a device directly going into enable mode. So you can see that the login name, the password, and the prompt are given here. Again, here's an example of a 3COM router. And like I said before, if you want to check every configuration or if the credentials that you provided is correct, you have to click on save and test so that you can ensure that the credentials you've given are the right credentials. So after providing credentials, you might face an error during a backup, saying that the credentials are valid, but the file transfer has failed. This could be due to the TFTP or SCP servers not being started. So you can go and check the status of these servers in the server settings. Let me quickly show you how to do that. Go to settings, go to general settings, go to server settings, check the running status of the TFTP server and the SCP server. You see that it is in the running status now. If it's not, you can click on start service on both of these servers, click on save, and now you'll be able to successfully execute all configuration actions that you want to do. So let's quickly move into configuration backup. So with the configuration backup in NCM, you have three different options. You can either instantly backup configurations of single or multiple devices simultaneously, or you can backup configuration using the real-time change detection, where NCM will automatically detect changes that are made to any of the configurations of your devices and instantly trigger a configuration backup. Or you can schedule configuration backups with that based on your networks or business's requirement. First, we have the real-time change detection. So using the real-time change detection, you can ensure that NCM looks for every configuration change that happens in your network and instantly triggers a backup for all of those changes. So let's look in detail about how the real-time change detection-based backup works. So the user logs into the device and exits from the device while making some changes. And the syslog listener will listen for a logout message. And once a logout message is found, NCM will immediately check the configuration or compare the configuration with the recent version to which the user has made changes to and the previous version, the configuration. And if a change is found, it is immediately backed up. And if no changes are found, the configuration file is discarded. So a possible error that you could face with real-time change detection-based backup is that we don't support enable change detection for the device. So this could be due to NCM not supporting syslog with that particular model. So you can fix this by enabling syslog by connecting the device to a telnet window and executing the enable syslog commands manually, or you can contact NCM support. Another error could be the change detection is enabled, but the change is not detected. This could be due to mismatched ports, or you can check the NCM syslog over server running status in the NCM server settings. Like I showed you before, you can just go to server settings and check the running status. If it's not in running status, you can just click on start service and click on save. So let me just show you how the instant backup and the real-time change backup works. So for a instant backup, you can choose one or multiple devices. Select them here on the three dot menu icon here. Click on backup here, and NCM will immediately trigger a backup for all of those devices. If you want to enable real-time change detection-based backup for devices, all you have to do is click on select again one or more devices here on the three dot menu. Click on enable change detection. enter all the specifics here, click on update, and the change based backup will be enabled for these devices. And the next time the user logs in and makes some kind of changes, the configuration file will immediately be backed up. So the final type is the scheduled backup, using which you can run everyday backups, routine everyday backups, and you can schedule them for a monthly, weekly, daily, hourly, or just a single once backup, once only backup. Create a schedule, you can select the devices here, again, one or more devices, click on schedule. Give the schedule a name. And you can click on save. For that, you can choose all the frequency here. You want it hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, or once. Enter the date and time here. Choose to get an email report or just save the report to the server where NCM is deployed. Receive a notification to the email subject. You can choose to notify if there's a failure in backup, exclude configuration different from notification, or notify if there's a change in configuration. Once you're done with all of that, you can click on save, and this new schedule will be saved, and NCM will trigger the backup accordingly. So there are chances of a schedule failure because the device credentials are incorrect. The credentials would have been correct when you first entered them, but would have been changed later. So you just have to go to the credentials of that particular device and update them with the recent credentials. Another failure for a reason for a backup could be the credentials are changed to invalid, which is again you'll have to go back to the credentials of those devices and update them, or the ports could be blocked, or the TFTP or SCP servers would not be in the running status. You can go and change them, or the file size, the configuration file size is so huge that it exceeds the timeout settings. You can just go to the device template of that particular device, like I showed you earlier, and then edit the timeout, which is right beside the configuration commands for that particular device template. Or it could be due to unsupported backup commands. Again, you can go back to the device template of that particular device and edit the backup commands, or you can create a new device template by cloning an existing device template and update them with the correct credentials, the correct commands. Next, we have change management feature in NCM. So using change management capability, you can view all the changes made in a device. You can view the configuration files that are incrementally versioned, along with who changed them, what was changed, and when it was changed. And you can also look at the historical change trend of that particular device. And using the diff view, you can view the number of lines modified or deleted. So this is how the diff view works. You can compare two different configuration versions of the same device or configurations of different devices itself, and the changes are color coded. So let me quickly take you through all of this on the UI. So let me just select one of these devices here. So take you to the snapshot page of those devices. And here you can view the configuration changes that have happened. And you can see that all of this is incrementally version. So who it was changed by, what type of configuration was changed, and if the change type was authorized or unauthorized, along with the date of when it was changed. So you can just click on this to view what kind of changes were made in that particular version of the configuration. So again, the change type, if it's unauthorized, it means that the configuration change was not made through NCM and was made by that particular user from a manual tool like a Telnet or Qt console. Let me just click on one of these configuration versions here. Since you see that shows the difference with the previous version, along with the difference with the baseline version. A baseline version is the most stable or most trusted configuration version of that device. So let me just drill down. So you can see the diff view here. Choose to see the lines that have been added and deleted. You can see that there are lines only that have been added here. Choose to view the difference only, or you can choose to view all the configuration lines where the differences are highlighted. You see that there are configuration changes being made here. So that's how the configuration change management and review works in NCM. So moving on, we have another capability called the firmware vulnerability management. So using this particular feature, you can scan your network for devices that are running on firmware versions that have reported vulnerabilities. So once you've detected them, you can also upgrade the firmware using NCM's config. So you can view the vulnerabilities, information on them, and learn how to fix them or upgrade them. And you can view the CVI details and take remediation measures, which again is upgrading the firmware of that particular device. You can perform an advanced CV search, and you can also generate vulnerability reports. If you check you to the firmware vulnerabilities, just click on the firmware vulnerabilities tab here. So here is the summary of vulnerabilities in your network. You have 202 total vulnerabilities, 13 are very critical. 6 have exploits available, which means that there are exploit codes which malicious users can use to hack into your network or your devices. So here is a CVI based view. So you can drill down to view the devices that have a vulnerability with this CVI ID. You see that the vulnerability has been reported. Drill down into that device. You can click on the device here. Just to view the you view all of the devices with vulnerabilities or the CVIDs that CVIDs, or you can choose to view the CVIDs with exploits alone because those need your primary attention. You also have a base score here. That it's a score from 0 to 10, 10 being the most vulnerable. Again, you can drill down and view the devices here. In the view here, current view or a grid view. So in the current view, you can see that you can view the reference URL directly from here. You want to go and read a little more about the firmware, the vulnerabilities itself. Change the view per page. Choose to view the page that you want. Again, you can choose to view the critical, important, moderate, or low vulnerabilities. Choose to view the exposed devices alone. Version distribution. So you can go and choose to view the vulnerability version distribution based on the vendor here. Choose the device group here. Here we are the advanced CV search, using which you can just enter the CV number if you've heard of a very critical vulnerability somewhere, and if you want to know if that uh, if the vulnerability with that particular CVI ID is present in your network, you can always enter the vulnerability ID, the CVI ID here, and understand if a device that is running in your network has that particular vulnerability. So we have we constantly update the vulnerability database. So if you want to update it immediately, you can click on update now. So there's a daily scheduled run, which is by default 2 a.m. and here we change it to 3 a.m. here. So you can see the last update result. So I want to update it now, I can just click on update now and it will instantly be updated. Or if you want to manually import it, you can get the vulnerability database update file from our customer support, and you can upload it here and click on import data. Okay, this is something that I just explained. We have it by default, it's scheduled to 2 a.m. and we changed it to 3 a.m. on our instance. You can do that as well. That fits your requirement. Change your time accordingly. And if you want, you can always get the most recent file from our customer support and upload it directly. Moving on to the last part of the train, we have disaster recovery options. So a disaster in networks is primarily something that would lead to a performance degradation, a full-blown network outage, or in the worst case, a security breach. So with Network Configuration Manager, you can prevent any of these network issues or network disasters, and also it helps you recover from all of such disasters if at all they happen in the network. So you can be prepared for all of these disasters by configuring a baseline configuration, syncing your startup and running configurations, triggering change notifications, and a rollback mechanism. And also, you can export configurations and upload the draft whenever required. So, a baseline configuration, like I mentioned earlier, is the most stable or trusted version of the configuration of any of the devices in your network. So, if something goes wrong in your network, if faulty configuration is uploaded, and the device is open to a security breach or is now vulnerable because of the configuration change, you can simply upload the baseline configuration back to the device so that everything, all the functions are restored immediately. Let me show you how you can baseline configuration. You can mark or label a configuration as a baseline configuration. Just have to select the device here on three-dot menu. Here, click on the label configuration. Uh, Choose the label as a baseline version. See that the description is autofilled here, and you can click on save. So the running configuration, the current running configuration of this device will immediately be labeled as baseline version. And the next time if a configuration change leads to something going wrong in that particular device, you can simply select the device, without menu here, click on upload configuration. And you have to ensure that the credentials provided here support the protocols support configuration change. Here you can see that the TFTP SCP configuration is credentials are provided or the protocols are provided here. You can go and change that first. Then you can click on baseline, select the baseline configuration, and the upload button appear here, and you can upload. So let me just try with that device just to show you an example. Again, you just have to go and change the protocols, and the upload button will appear here. You click on upload, and the baseline version will now be uploaded to your device, and it will restore all the functions of that particular device. So when you try to upload, you might face an error saying that it does not support upload for this feature. So like I showed you, the telnet or SSH protocol does not support upload. So you can edit the credentials and change the protocol from SSH telnet to one of these combinations: SSH TFTP, SSH SCP, telnet TFTP, depending on the device. So you can do that using the credentials option, like I showed you earlier. So the error might also occur when you use the SCP TFTP protocol. So this could be due to the reason that NCM does support the device. The device vendor supports, but the NCM device template doesn't have upload commands for that device. You can go and edit the upload commands, or you can create a new device template itself. So another way to quickly restore your network after a disaster or to prevent a disaster itself is to ensure that the startup and running configurations of every device in your network are in sync. So all the changes that you make in a device configuration is made to the running configuration, which is in the volatile memory of the device. So a power failure or a device reboot will lead to the erasure of all the recent changes that you've made. So this could be a performance optimization kind of a change or a security related change. And if a device reboot or something else erases all of those changes, it will never be copied onto the startup configurations, and all of the changes will be lost. And this might lead to a performance degradation or a security breach. So NCM helps by detecting those kinds of difference in the startup and running configurations, and it shows the startup running conflict status report in the inventory itself and helps you sync configuration right there. So you can see the configuration conflict status here. You can see many devices are in sync and some of them are not. So to sync them, all you have to do is select the device, menu here, click on sync configuration, and NCM will immediately start copying the running configuration, startup configurations, and now they'll be in sync. So a device reboot or a power loss will not result in the erasure of all the recent configuration changes that it made. So a possible error is an upload failure. So this could be due to the command timeout, which again, you can go back to the device template settings and you can change the timeout settings for that particular command, for the upload command. And based on the protocol that you've used, you can go and check the TFTP or SCP servers in the server settings. Another possible error is that the change happens, but the startup running configuration conflict is not automatically detected by NCM in real time. This could be due to a disabled real-time change direction. So you can go and fix this by enabling change detection if syslog is supported by NCM. If syslog is not supported, the startup running config will be detected after the next successful backup. Moving on, we have the change notifications and rollback feature. So you can choose to trigger a change notification in any of your devices and receive it through email, via SNMP tab for change event, via trouble ticket, or generate a syslog message for a change event. Or you can choose to configure a rollback mechanism, which will roll back the configuration to the previous version or to a baseline version. So how that works: config automation, change notifications. You can view all the notifications that have been configured in this particular instance of NCM. If you want to add a new notification, click on the plus icon here. Name or description. Choose the configuration type for which you want to receive notifications for. You want to be both startup and admin configuration, or just running configuration, or startup configuration alone. Also, you can choose to view, select the change type, the authorized, unauthorized, or if you want to receive notifications for both of these types of changes, you can choose both of them as well. And then there's the channels through which you can receive notification. Use email, use the recipient ID, subject, message, format. You can choose to append the configuration difference in the message. You can also choose to receive the SNMP trap. So if you use a network monitoring tool like Op Manager, you can configure the SNMP traps to be sent to Op Manager. We have a log analysis tool like a firewall analyzer. You can choose to send syslog messages to that particular solution. Or if you want to just retrieve it through trouble tickets, you can then configure the trouble tickets, enter the recipient ID here, email subject, ticket message format, and also here again you can choose to append the configuration difference in the message. Finally, you have the rollback mechanism. So here you can choose to roll back the configuration whenever any kind of change is made. You can choose to roll back it to the previous version or the baseline version. So like I mentioned earlier, you can choose to configure a rollback mechanism to your critical devices like your core routers or your firewalls where you don't want any kind of changes to be made at all. I'll just choose maybe the baseline version here. Next, you can associate single or multiple devices. And once you've selected all of those, you can click on save and the change notifications will now be configured. So finally, we have the export configuration option. So using this, you can export configuration files using NCM, and all of these files are served as saved on the NCM server. You can schedule them if you want to. And this is usually used when you want to restore your network in some cases where NCM is made unavailable due to a server issue. So you can keep them in a readable format and you can upload them back to the devices using our Telnet OPT console. Show you how to export configurations on settings here. Click on export configuration here. You can choose the frequency at which you want to export configurations. Use the time here using daily, or you can just click once. You choose to receive an email when the export operation has been completed. Choose the single device or device groups here. Choose to receive a notification on failure if the export configuration has failed for one or more devices. Here you can choose to keep all the configurations in the same folder. The destination directory, you can change that if you want to. And here's the destination file folder format. Is that so it will always contain the date, the entire date, and you can choose the format of how the data is structured based on how you use it. And if you want this to be a schedule, you can click on save, and the export will happen based on whatever time and frequency you provided here. If you want to just export configurations right now, you can click on export configurations, and you can go to this directory and copy all of those configurations and have a backup. So thank you once again. Let's meet next Tuesday, same time. Bye-bye.